Before we dive into one of the most mysterious and gripping legends ever told, I want you to consider something. Picture yourself in an ancient world, one where giants roamed, and the very heavens themselves were on the brink of destruction. The story of the Nephilim has echoed through time, whispered in texts and legends, but who were they really? Were they just myth? Or could these giants, born from fallen angels, have once walked among us? The truth, as we'll explore, is even darker and more captivating than anything we've been told. You've probably heard stories of giants, colossal beings from a forgotten past. But what if I told you that these creatures were more than just stories? That the Nephilim, those mighty beings, were the result of a forbidden union between celestial beings and humans? The Bible, the Book of Enoch, and many other ancient sources tell us that these sons of God descended to earth, and what followed was a world-changing creation, half angel, half human, and utterly terrifying. Hey, but there's more to this tale than giants and angels. What if I told you the Nephilim were only the beginning? They were tied to a cosmic battle between divine judgment and forbidden knowledge. From the dust of their existence, a flood of destruction would reshape the earth, and yet their shadow looms even today in modern mythology. Now I want you to pause for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of this mystery, seeing the Nephilim not as just myth, but as something more, something real, something that may have once lived and walked among us. As we journey into their origins, their fall, and the judgment that followed, I ask you to not just listen, but feel. Let these revelations stir something deep within you. Let them challenge what you know about history, religion, and even the world around you. And when we're done, come back to this very moment. Tell us what you felt. Share your thoughts, your discoveries, and your questions. After all, the Nephilim are not just a thing of the past. They are a challenge to our understanding of the world, and maybe, just maybe, they have more to teach us than we realize. So before we continue, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and get ready to unravel the mystery that's been hidden for centuries. Together, we're going to uncover the truth about the Nephilim and their place in history, in the Bible, and in our very existence. The origins of the Nephilim have been lost to history, buried deep within ancient texts and faded scrolls. The most well-known mention of the Nephilim comes from the Bible, specifically in Genesis 6 to 1-4. But the story doesn't end there. The true nature of the Nephilim stretches far beyond those few cryptic verses. To understand who they were, we need to look at a time when the world was much different, when beings from the heavens dared to walk among us. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. But who were these sons of God? Scholars, theologians, and historians have debated this for centuries. The most common interpretation is that these sons were fallen angels, celestial beings, who rebelled against divine order. The Book of Enoch, an ancient text often considered apocryphal, expands on this idea. It tells the tale of a group of angels known as the Watchers, who descended to earth. These beings were tasked with watching over humanity, but instead they fell in love with mortal women and took them as wives. From these unions, the Nephilim were born giants, mighty and fearsome. As the Watchers disobeyed divine laws, they not only corrupted humanity's bloodline, but they also taught humans forbidden knowledge. They taught them the secrets of heaven, how to make weapons of war, how to read the stars, how to control the elements. The knowledge they shared was potent and dangerous, and it altered the very fabric of the world. This divine rebellion set the stage for the flood that would come. A flood meant to cleanse the earth of the corruption brought by these celestial beings. But what did these Nephilim look like? The Bible doesn't give a detailed physical description, but it's clear that they were beings of great stature. Some accounts say they were giant towering figures whose presence could strike fear into even the bravest of men. The Nephilim were more than just large in size. They were powerful warriors whose strength and abilities were beyond the comprehension of the human mind. Their very existence blurred the line between the mortal and the divine. They were half angel, half human, a unique hybrid that left an indelible mark on the world's myths and legends. The Nephilim were not just giants. They were beings of supernatural abilities, and their very existence raised questions about the boundaries of creation. Were they part of a divine plan? Or were they an unintended consequence of celestial interference? Could these beings have been part of a grander design, or were they the result of a tragic mistake, a mistake that would lead to divine retribution? To understand the Nephilim, we must also explore the ancient cultures that recorded similar beings. The stories of giants are not confined to the Bible alone. From the Greek Titans to the Roman legends of Hercules and the gods, ancient civilizations spoke of mighty beings who were half god, half human. Even in the mythologies of the Norse, we find echoes of giants, beings of immense power who shaped the world and often stood in opposition to the gods. These stories, though varied, all point to a common thread: the idea that giants once walked the earth and that their legacy continues to intrigue us. But the Nephilim's origins aren't just confined to mythology. Some believe that these beings were real giants who once roamed the earth, who were part of an ancient race that predated our current civilization. This theory, though controversial, raises even more questions about the nature of the world and its history. What if these giants were more than just stories passed down through generations? What if they were real and their existence was hidden, erased from history by those who sought to control the narrative? As we delve deeper into the origins of the Nephilim, we begin to see a picture emerge not just of giants, but of a world shaped by celestial beings who meddled in human affairs. The Nephilim were not merely creatures born from an unnatural union. They were the product of rebellion, of a cosmic struggle between the forces of heaven and the desires of those who walked among us. Their story is one of power, of corruption, and of a legacy that still haunts us today. When we think of giants, we imagine colossal beings, towering over mountains and casting shadows that darken the land. The Nephilim, according to many ancient texts, fit this description perfectly. These beings weren't just larger than life. They were beings of immense power, with the strength and abilities that transcended the natural world. But what made the Nephilim so special? What truly set them apart from other mythological giants or divine beings? The most common image of the Nephilim is that of towering giants, beings so large that they seem to touch the sky. The Bible offers only a fleeting mention of their size, but other ancient accounts give us a clearer picture. In the book of Enoch, these giants are described as great giants who caused havoc on earth. Their size and strength were unmatched, and they were said to possess powers that were beyond the understanding of mere mortals. This was not a race of ordinary humans, but rather a hybrid of celestial beings and earthly women. And their children were a testament to the union of the divine and the mortal. The giants of the Nephilim weren't just large in size. They were also beings of extraordinary might. These beings were said to be warriors of unimaginable strength, capable of feats that no human could ever accomplish. They were described as mighty men of renown, powerful figures who shaped the history of the world. Their very presence was enough to instill fear, and their power seemed to know no bounds. With the blood of fallen angels running through their veins, the Nephilim were born into a legacy of conflict and power. But the Nephilim were not just warriors, they were also symbols of something far darker. The very nature of their creation, born from a forbidden union between angels and humans, made them an aberration in the eyes of the divine. These beings were the result of an act of defiance, a breach of cosmic order that had consequences far beyond their physical might. As giants, they were symbols of the danger that arises when the divine interferes too deeply with the mortal world. Across many ancient cultures, we find echoes of the Nephilim in the form of other giant beings. In Greek mythology, the Titans were the children of the primordial gods, massive beings who ruled before the gods of Mount Olympus. These giants were often depicted as powerful and dangerous, just like the Nephilim. Similarly, in the myths of the Norse, giants were a recurring theme, beings of great power who were often in conflict with the gods. The similarities between these giants and the Nephilim are undeniable, suggesting that the idea of giant beings was not exclusive to one culture, but was a shared mythological theme across the ancient world. The concept of giants in ancient myth was not always about size or strength alone. The giants of old were also deeply connected to the earth itself. In many myths, giants were seen as embodiments of the natural world, beings who were part of the earth's very fabric, capable of controlling the forces of nature. The Nephilim, too, were often associated with the earth, as their actions and influence were said to have left a permanent mark on the land. Their existence was intertwined with the fate of humanity, and their downfall was tied to a divine judgment that would reshape the world. Despite the stories and legends that surround them, the Nephilim remain an enigma. Were they truly giants, or were they simply mighty warriors? Were they beings of flesh and blood, or were they something more, beings created by the intervention of angels, shaped by divine will? The truth remains elusive, and yet the stories of the Nephilim continue to captivate us. Their legacy is one of power, mystery, and the complex relationship between the divine and the mortal. As we delve deeper into their story, we find ourselves drawn into a narrative that questions the very nature of creation, power, and divine judgment. In many ways, the Nephilim represent a paradox, beings of great power and strength, yet ultimately doomed by their very existence. They were giants, yes, but their downfall was inevitable. Their story serves as a warning, a tale of hubris and the consequences of defying divine order. But it also serves as a reminder of the power and influence that these beings once held, and the lasting impact they left on the world. The story of the Nephilim cannot be understood without first exploring the mysterious beings known as the Watchers. In the Bible and the Book of Enoch, the Watchers were celestial beings, angels, who had been sent to earth to guide and protect humanity. But instead of fulfilling their divine purpose, they became entangled in a tragic fall from grace. The Watchers' descent from heaven was not just physical but moral, marking the beginning of a cosmic rebellion that would echo throughout history. The Watchers' story begins in the heavenly realms, where they were entrusted with the task of observing humanity. According to the Book of Enoch, there were 200 of these angels, each tasked with watching over different aspects of the earth and its inhabitants. These beings, once part of the divine order, were meant to observe and report on human affairs. But their mission took an unexpected turn when they gazed upon the daughters of men. Their temptation was not one of physical desire alone, but the yearning for something forbidden, something beyond their celestial realm. It was this forbidden attraction that led to the Watchers' downfall. The angels, driven by their desires, took human wives and fathered children. These unions between celestial beings and mortal women resulted in the birth of the Nephilim giants, who were part human, part angel. But the consequences of these actions were far-reaching. The Watchers' disobedience angered the divine powers that be, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of history. As the Nephilim grew in power and strength, so too did the corruption they brought to the world. The offspring of the Watchers were not merely giants, they were beings of great violence and destruction. According to the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim began to consume all the resources of the earth, taking whatever they desired without regard for the natural order. They wreaked havoc on humanity, spreading chaos and destruction. The Watchers, too, were not without fault. They had not only violated divine law by mating with humans, but they had also shared forbidden knowledge with their mortal companions. The arts of warfare, magic, and alchemy, knowledge that was meant to remain hidden, were passed down to humanity, creating a world of imbalance and strife. As the earth descended into corruption, the divine response was swift and severe. God, angered by the Watchers' betrayal and the chaos their actions had unleashed, decided to bring judgment upon the world. The flood, as told in the story of Noah, was the ultimate punishment, a cleansing of the earth, to rid it of the corruption caused by the Watchers and their Nephilim offspring. But the punishment wasn't just reserved for the giants. The Watchers, too, were condemned. In a fate worse than death, they were bound and cast into the abyss, their punishment eternal.
Ow.
The fall of the Watchers is more than just a tale of rebellion. It's a story of temptation, choice, and consequence. The Watchers were not evil beings by nature, but their fall shows how even the most divine of creatures can be corrupted when they step outside the bounds of their purpose. Their desire to intermarry with humans was born of a longing for something more, a desire for forbidden knowledge, for power, and for a connection to the human world. But this desire led to their downfall, and it also brought suffering to humanity. In many ways, the Watcher's story mirrors the age-old tale of forbidden fruit, the idea that when one reaches for knowledge or power that is not meant to be attained, it comes at a great cost. The Watchers, in their disobedience, brought the knowledge of the heavens to earth, but this knowledge was not meant to be shared. It was the catalyst for a world that spiraled into chaos, a world that was doomed to be cleansed by flood. But what is truly fascinating about the Watchers is their lingering presence in human history. Even though they were punished and cast out, their influence remains. The Nephilim, their offspring, live on in myth, in the shadows of history, and in the imaginations of those who seek to uncover the truth behind their story. And though the Watchers themselves were bound in chains, their story continues to be told, their fall continues to resonate, and their legacy endures. The Nephilim's reign was one of chaos and destruction, but their story didn't end in triumph. Instead, it culminated in a dramatic and catastrophic judgment that would reshape the world. The divine response to the corruption brought by the Watchers and their giant offspring was swift and unrelenting. The flood of Noah, often seen as a cleansing event, was not merely a natural disaster, but a divine act of retribution, a way to eradicate the corruption caused by these celestial beings and their monstrous descendants. As the Nephilim grew in power and influence, their impact on the earth became undeniable. According to the Bible, they became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. They were not just giants. They were rulers, warriors, and conquerors who lived above and beyond the laws of mortal men. Their very existence was an affront to the natural order, as they were born of a forbidden union between fallen angels and human women. This act of defiance against the divine plan set the stage for a flood that would wipe the slate clean, a cosmic reset for a world that had been tainted beyond repair. But the flood was not merely a punishment for the Nephilim. It was also a response to the earth's overall corruption. The book of Genesis tells us that the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. The Nephilim, with their power and violence, had brought humanity to the brink of destruction. It had corrupted the human bloodline, spread chaos, and unleashed forbidden knowledge. This was not just about giants. This was about the very fabric of creation being unraveled. Noah, the lone righteous man in a world consumed by evil, was chosen by God to survive the coming storm. His family, the only ones deemed worthy, were spared as a remnant to carry on humanity's legacy. The ark, a symbol of salvation and divine mercy, became the vessel that would preserve the future of mankind. Yet for the Nephilim, there would be no escape. Their fate was sealed long before the floodwaters began to rise. The waters of the flood engulfed the earth, and as the deluge took its toll, the Nephilim perished along with the Watchers, who had brought them into being. The giants were wiped from the face of the earth, their reign of terror ending in a torrent of divine wrath. For those who had dared to defy the natural order, there would be no reprieve. They were obliterated, leaving behind only the whispers of their existence in ancient texts and the myths that survived. But what happened to the Nephilim after the flood? Did they vanish entirely, or did their legacy persist in some form? Some believe that while the giants were destroyed, their influence continued to linger. The Bible hints at the possibility of their return, referencing the Nephilim again in the context of later biblical events, suggesting that their spirit, or their progeny, may have persisted in some way. Other theories point to the idea that the Nephilim's bloodline didn't disappear with the flood, but rather continued in secret, hidden from the eyes of the world. The judgment placed upon the Nephilim was not just about their physical destruction, it was about restoring balance to a corrupted world. Their existence had been a violation of the divine order, and their destruction was the ultimate consequence of that rebellion. The flood represented not only the end of the Nephilim's reign, but the beginning of a new chapter in humanity. Is history a fresh start, unmarred by the influence of the giants and the fallen angels who had walked among men? Yet the story of the Nephilim doesn't end with the flood. Their legacy, their myth, and their lessons continue to resonate through history. The giants may have been wiped from the earth. The tale of their fall serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of defying the divine, the consequences of overreaching ambition, and the fragile nature of the balance between heaven and earth. The Nephilim were the product of rebellion, an act of defiance that brought them to their tragic end. But in their story, we find echoes of our own struggles with temptation, power, and the desire to transcend our limitations. And so, the Nephilim's judgment serves as both a warning and a lesson. It reminds us that even the mightiest beings can fall, and that those who dare to challenge the divine order will ultimately face the consequences of their actions. The Nephilim may have been giants, but in the end, they were no match for the power of divine judgment. The ancient tale of the Nephilim, though rooted in biblical and mythological texts, has found a fascinating new life in modern pop culture. From blockbuster films to best-selling novels, the story of the giants born of fallen angels has been woven into the very fabric of contemporary entertainment. But why does this ancient legend continue to captivate us? Why does the story of these mysterious beings, whose existence was once confined to scripture and ancient scrolls, still have such a profound impact on our imaginations today? In modern movies, TV shows, and literature, the Nephilim are often portrayed as powerful, enigmatic beings whose true nature is as dangerous as it is alluring. We've seen them appear in various forms, from towering monsters to godlike figures with the ability to control the fate of humanity. One of the most prominent examples comes from the world of comic books and film, where the concept of giants, whether literal or metaphorical, has been reimagined for a new generation. Characters that resemble the Nephilim often embody the clash between divine and mortal realms, serving as a reminder of the ancient power that once ruled the earth. In television, the Nephilim have been depicted in a more subtle, yet no less compelling light. Shows like Supernatural and the originals have drawn on the mythology of the Nephilim to create complex storylines that blur the lines between good and evil. These beings, often depicted as fallen angels or half-human, half-divine creatures, are forced to grapple with their dual natures, torn between their celestial heritage and their human instincts. This internal struggle mirrors the story of the Nephilim in ancient text. Beings were born of rebellion and forced to navigate the consequences of their existence. Books and literature, too, have embraced the Nephilim as central figures in their plots. The Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instruments series, for example, presents a world where Nephilim are depicted as shadow hunters, warriors who protect humanity from demonic forces. These modern interpretations of the Nephilim bring them into the present, creating a world where the giants of old are not only relevant, but essential to the battle between good and evil. The Nephilim in these stories are powerful beings who continue to face moral dilemmas and struggle with their place in the world, drawing a direct line from their ancient past to their modern-day counterparts. The reason why the Nephilim continued to appear in pop culture is simple. They embody the very human struggle between good and evil, the divine and the mortal, the powerful and the vulnerable. They are both celestial and earthly, bridging to worlds that seem incompatible, yet undeniably connected. The Nephilim serve as a reminder of the consequences of forbidden knowledge, of the dangers of meddling with forces beyond our understanding, and of the moral complexities that arise when beings of immense power interact with the human world. Their story resonates with us because it taps into our deepest fears and desires. The idea of giants, beings far greater than ourselves, challenges our understanding of the world. We are both fascinated and terrified by the possibility that such beings once existed, that they may still exist, or that their power could one day return. The Nephilim represent a world where the divine interacts with the mortal in ways that are both uninspiring and terrifying, making them the perfect characters for stories that explore the limits of human power, ambition, and hubris. Even in modern religious circles, the Nephilim continue to provoke debate. Some view them as purely mythological, while others believe they are part of a divine plan, or even a warning for humanity to stay within the bounds of moral order. The Nephilim's story, once confined to the realm of ancient texts, has become a tool for exploring themes of sin, redemption, and the complexity of human nature, whether they are seen as fallen angels or a metaphor for human excess. The Nephilim remain a powerful symbol in our collective imagination. In a world that is constantly changing and evolving, the Nephilim offer a glimpse into a time long past. Yet their story continues to influence how we view ourselves and our relationship with the divine. They are no longer just figures from ancient history or myth. They are a mirror reflecting our own struggles, our own desire for power, and the consequences of crossing boundaries that were never meant to be crossed. As we conclude our exploration into the mystery of the Nephilim, it's clear that their story is far more than just a tale of giants, fallen angels, and divine judgment. The Nephilim are a symbol of the conflict between the divine and the mortal, a reminder of what happens when boundaries are crossed and the consequences of tampering with the natural order. Their story is one of both awe and terror, of celestial beings who reach down into the human realm and forever change the course of history. The flood that wiped away the Nephilim was not simply an act of vengeance, it was a divine reset. It's an effort to cleanse the earth of the corruption they had brought with them. But even though the giants perished in the waters, their legacy continued to echo through time. The Nephilim, whether they were giants, fallen angels, or something else entirely, left an indelible mark on humanity's imagination. From ancient scriptures to modern pop culture, their story has been retold and reimagined, keeping their myth alive for generations. We have explored the origins of the Nephilim, their creation from the union of angels and humans, their rampage across the earth, and the divine retribution that followed. You've seen how they were not only giants in size, but also in power, with the ability to shape history and challenge the very foundations of creation. But in the end, their downfall was inevitable. The divine judgment that destroyed them also served as a warning, one that still resonates today. The story of the Nephilim is a tale of hubris, of crossing the line between the divine and the human, and of the consequences that come when we dare to challenge the natural order. Yet despite their destruction, the Nephilim have not disappeared. They live on in our stories, in the myths and legends that continue to captivate our imaginations. They are more than just ancient giants. They are a reflection of our own desires for power, for knowledge, and for transcendence. They challenge us to look deeper into our own hearts and question the boundaries we place between ourselves and the divine. What happens when we reach for something greater than ourselves? What are the consequences of defying the rules that govern the world? As we reflect on the Nephilim's legacy, we are reminded that their story is not just a relic of ancient times. It is a cautionary tale that continues to resonate in our modern world. The Nephilim, in their immense power and tragic downfall, offer a profound lesson about the dangers of overreaching, about the limits of human ambition, and about the consequences of defying the divine order. So, what do you think? After hearing the story of the Nephilim, the giants, the fallen angels, and the judgment they faced, how do you feel about their place in history? Are they merely a myth, or could there be some truth hidden in the ancient texts that have survived for millennia? One thing is certain: their story is far from over. The Nephilim continue to captivate our imaginations, challenging us to confront the mysteries of our past and our future. If you found this exploration of the Nephilim fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Like the video
And join the conversation in the comments below.
Add your thoughts.
Theories, and any questions you may have. We're only scratching the surface of this ancient mystery, and we'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, remember, the Nephilim may have fallen, but their legacy is alive and well in the stories we tell today.